This should be interesting.
Envisioned by a small development team in Colombia, Cris Tales adopts the structure of classic turn-based RPGs and mixes in time travel in a way that plays into both the story and the battle system. It introduces some intriguing mechanics and possibilities, but it ends up being a bit more shallow than it first appears. The story centers around Crispell, an orphan whose life is changed after an encounter with a talking yellow frog wearing a top hat. By chasing down the frog named Matthias and following him to the cathedral, Crispell unlocks her abilities as a time mage, who can see into both the past and the future. After defending her village from an attack, she sets off to find the other cathedrals to expand her powers and stop the Time Empress from taking over the world. You gain several party members along the way, and the tale is lighthearted overall with a fair amount of banter back and forth. If anything, there are times when your friends can get a bit too chatty, chiming in on everything whether or not they have something worthwhile to say. The early chapters are straightforward as you go from place to place, but around halfway through, after you reach the volcanic region of Cinder, events start to feel more consequential, backstories unfurl, and time elements start to play a greater role.
This is incredible! We're actually inside a volcano!
Altering time plays a very visible role throughout the game. As you walk through populated areas, the screen is split into 3 sections, with the past on the left and the future on the right. This creates a fascinating look at the world, as you can see younger or older versions of each character, as well as changes in the environment surrounding you. You can deploy Matthias to hop into the past or future to open treasure chests, eavesdrop on conversations, or just get a better look at life in a different era. However, the small frog has to stay close to Crispell's physical location, so these excursions are typically brief. There are fun instances, like planting a vine in the past to climb to a new area in the present, but at times, the mechanic feels almost insignificant, as you simply hop into a different time period, pick up an item, and hop back.
Here it is! Now to bring it back to Crispell.
You did it!
Dungeons don't share this fractured view of time, but instead allow you to manipulate the state of specific objects in the environment. For instance, restoring a broken pillar can create a pathway above, while decaying it to dust allows you to walk through where it was standing. Shifting the state of objects to find the path ahead is about as involved as puzzles get. There are some switches and levers to pull, and side routes have extra treasure, but there generally isn't a whole lot to find off the beaten path. Cris Tales does have random battles that can interrupt you as you're trying to work out where to go, but they're fairly unobtrusive, with means to bypass or avoid them. The combat system is the most engaging part of Cris Tales, as it finds ways to mix things up and it implements time mechanics in intriguing ways. Similar to the Mario RPGs, there's an element of timing, as you have to tap a button at the right time to increase damage or to defend against enemy blows. Identifying the right timing during an animation is hazy, but thankfully a broader window gives you some benefit even when you don't get a perfect critical hit. Party members each play quite differently as well. Christopher is perhaps the most useful, as he excels in both physical damage and powerful spells. The robotic JKR-721 has a heat system to manage, and one of his skills has you mashing to unleash a barrage of light rapid strikes. Meanwhile, the bubbly Zaz drops in various roulette wheels, leaving the exact methods to her madness somewhat up to chance. Every so often, most party members can also perform synchro attacks with Crispell, joining abilities into powerful combos similar to Chrono Trigger's dual techs. Crispell herself employs the most significant techniques, as she can use time crystals in combat, allowing you to shift enemies on the party's right into the future or enemies on the left into the past. Enemies have 3 time-based variations with stats and abilities that change as they get older or younger. There are also various tricks that you can pull off, such as poisoning an enemy and then shifting them to the future so all their poison damage hits them at once. Some enemies take advantage of these time shifts too, such as giant insects that use silk to lock a crystal in place, preventing you from undoing its effects. The biggest flaw with combat simply comes down to a lack of variety. Each area only has a handful of enemies, and many creatures appear in multiple regions, sometimes with different elemental affinities. Even many of the bosses repeat in some way or another. So although there's a lot to experiment with, the lack of enemy types means you get familiar with their tricks pretty quickly. The overall progression of Cris Tales advances in a chapter-like structure. You travel to a new town, get involved in helping people there, fight through some dungeons, and do some side quests before wrapping up a central conflict and traveling onward. Each region has its own dilemmas. St. Clarity struggles with tensions between its rich and poor districts, while Cinder fights a stubborn plague.
Ah yes, even with the crystals, there's only so much you can do to help.
Before you move on to the next leg of your journey, though, you're presented with one final choice that determines the fate of that town. In the opening tutorial, you have to choose between houses, saving one and leaving the other to rot, but in practice, the rest of the choices aren't really choices at all. If you complete all the side quests in an area, there's always a third choice that's the best of both worlds. Not only are these third options clearly superior, but they're necessary if you want to get the best ending. While we won't spoil the specifics, this structure deflates any notion that your decisions matter at all. It essentially amounts to completing every quest and picking the right options to get a slightly extended cutscene at the end.
So you really saw it through, eh?
Yes, the flowers are there beside the memorial. I hope it gives them some peace.
Adding some frustration to the matter, this means that you have to do each specific region's side quests before reaching a certain point in the story. Even though there are clear point-of-no-return checkpoints, they don't always appear in time for you to go back to find every side quest, and this oversight can cause you to miss a few by accident. The gorgeous visuals of Cris Tales are an immediate highlight, with sharp, expressive artwork that stands out from similar games. Environments appear in thin layers that create an impression of space similar to a pop-up book or diorama, and long corridors often heighten the effect. The orchestral score is bolstered by a few memorable themes, and all of the dialogue is fully voiced, with some fun performances enriching the characters' personalities. Much of the flavor comes from the developer's Colombian heritage, and although many players may not recognize the fashion cathedrals or locations like Rainbow Lake, it's still wonderful to have a fantasy world that draws from a different set of inspirations and references than the typical fare. However, there are inconsistencies throughout the presentation. Most notably, typos routinely show up throughout the text. There are also moments when text and voice lines don't match, and times when the recording quality shifts from one sentence to the next. From time to time, there are glitches too, like sound effects not playing or textures not loading. A few small mistakes are expected, but seeing them appear so much makes them hard to ignore. Taking 25 hours or so to complete, Cris Tales isn't exactly short, but it often points to a larger world and more consequential choices than it really has to offer. The world feels small and only seems to get smaller as you get near the end and revisit past areas. It's an absolutely beautiful game with interesting mechanics and some fun characters, but it doesn't fully flesh out the expectations it initially sets. Final score, 7 out of 10. Easy Allies reviews are made possible by generous viewers just like you. If you like what you see, check out patreon.com/easyallies to help us make more. For just $1 a month, you can gain access to weekly updates, spoiler discussions, and exclusive shows.